Here's what we're going to do. At the top of each paper is a different quotation from what you were asked to read for today. Every table has a different one. Okay? What you're going to do is kind of put that in the middle. I expect your books to be out. I want to see you thumbing through, rereading. I want to hear you talking. But listen, each of you is going to respond to that quotation on this space. Here's what I mean by respond. If you're at a loss, for things to say, first of all, you might go back and look at it, maybe read it in context a little bit. I've given you a page number for each of them. After you've read it, simply paraphrase it. Here's what I've read. Put it in your own words. What do you hear? You could finish this sentence. I think, because, I wonder. This is the hardest one, but it's also the coolest one. I'm most interested in that. Or this is like, or this reminds me of. You could make connections to other stories or other experiences you have. Right? So after you've read the quote and you're talking about it at your table, maybe read it in context, write on that poster responses. Okay? You don't have to frame it this way, but if you don't have to frame it this way, but if you can't think of anything else, you can. Now here's the trick. You only have about 5 minutes per quote, and then we're going to rotate. You're going to get a different quote to do the same thing. Okay? And we'll make 3 or 4 rotations as we go. Yes. Can I, hang on, before you go, can I clarify those directions at all? You understand what you're doing?
Does each person write on?
I would like, yeah, the more you put on there, the better. So, yeah. No, on the poster, right on the page. All right, so off you go. On your mark, set. 5 minutes with the first quote. What quote do you have?
The one about Mr. P and Indians.
That's a big scene. So what do you have to say about that?
I want to know why they wanted to hurt the Indians and wanted to kill them instead.
Yeah, what's the line? Something that they had to kill the Indian to save the child.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do the rest of you make about that line? What's going on there?
I wonder why Mr. P apologized to Arnold after Arnold broke his nose.
Yeah, there's an irony in that. He's the one that got hurt, yet he's the one that apologized.
I think he's forgiving him because of the guilt that is built up from after so many years of how he beats other Indians in the past with a stick.
Why were they doing that? What do you suppose that was about?
Racism?
For sure, in part, you were about to say?
They don't want them to act like Indians. They want to try to get that out of them to act like normal white people.
No, I love how you put quotes around the word normal there. Nice. What are you guys talking about? Ooh, the punch in the face.
I think I got 6. Oh, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Tell me about the punch in the face.
We were kind of wondering why he didn't attack back. Because he was
Roger?
so tough and everything, and why Roger didn't attack back.
I thought maybe Roger was shocked or surprised.
One of the things that I think is cool about that moment, in terms of that scene, what happens just before he gets punched?
He's insulting Arnold and calling him those insults.
Yeah, no, you're being politically correct. It's more than an insult, right? He tells a horrific joke, right, with language that we're not allowed to say, right? And I think it's a cool move on Alexi's part, in that Roger doesn't get away with that, right? He says this horrible thing, and what happens?
He went too far.
He gets knocked on his butt.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting question that came up in the other group, and I'll let you guys wrestle with it. Do you think Roger is racist? That joke is horribly racist.
It is a horrible joke, but I don't think he's completely racist to a point where he couldn't like him at all. Because later in the story, they become pretty good friends.
Yeah.
It's almost like a test.
I don't think he's racist. I feel like that's just how they are. They're not
That's how they were raised.
Yeah, they're not racist.
And
That's
not
just really what they
necessarily racist, but and then he gradually comes around and sees how they do.
But there's a difference between acting racist and being born and being raised racist. I don't
Yeah.
see a whole huge difference.
Roger kind of unlearned some things he thought he knew about, about the reservation and those kids, right? And Arnold helps him learn that. And at first, with the quote you guys have, that's a pretty hard lesson. But good.
So the quotation from early in the novel on that second chapter is that it sucks to be poor, and it sucks to feel that you somehow deserve to be poor. You start believing that you're poor because you're stupid and ugly, and then you start believing you're stupid and ugly because you're Indian, and because you're Indian, you start believing you're destined to be poor. It's an ugly circle, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's what I'm going to say about that. Go ahead.
Even though he knows of the circle and believes that it exists and that happens, I still think that he has hope that he can somehow get out of the circle.
Yeah. He recognizes this cycle, but he has a certain amount of determination to break it. Good. Somebody else? Yeah.
I wonder why everybody on the reservation has that same mentality and how that whole vicious circle started in the first place.
That's a great question. Let's theorize about that. Why do you suppose everyone is so hopeless there? What are some of the things stacked up against them? There's a lot of racism. Everyone treated them that way. They're just a bunch of drunken Indians. What else is stacked up against them? Being poor, poverty. Yeah, poverty is a cycle that's hard to get out of. It's okay, I got you. There you go. Here. Yep, there you go. Perfect. Riley's question was she wonders why they feel that way, why they feel stuck, why they can't get out.
Yeah, why everybody on the reservation has that same mentality.
Yeah. Other folks chime in. What other things do you want to say about that quote? There's lots of stuff on that paper. Yeah, go ahead.
I wonder why they don't try to get out of what they're in. Everyone's against them, so why can't they show the other people that they are not going to give up and that they can make a life for themselves?
Yeah, that's a real common kind of narrative, right? Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. If you work hard, you can achieve. Does anyone want to kind of defend that? Why don't they? What's the problem? Are they lazy? Is that it? They're just lazy, drunken Indians?
Well, if you start telling someone that they're not worth anything, and even if they are worth something, you have 100 people telling them that every day, they're going to start believing it themselves.
Maybe that's a decent segue to the Mr. P moment. Which table has that? Thanks. Can you just summarize the scene? What happens? What's the story of Mr. P?
Mr. P forgives him for hitting him because he says that when he started teaching there, that they beat Honorati kids, and that's how they were taught to teach. They were supposed to kill the Indian and save the child.
What do we want to say about that? What's written on those pages? How did the rest of you react to that scene where Mr. P gets bopped in the nose?
I think Mr. P forgives them partially because of all the guilt built up after beating so many Indians. They try to beat the Indians because they didn't want them to be Indians anymore. They wanted to be normal white people.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. Trying to make them white, knock the Indian out of them. Yeah.
Well, it shows that no one actually cares for the reservation. They just want to kill their spirit and make them more civilized. They don't care about their, what's it called? Culture.
Their identity. Here's how I want to end. Don't pack up yet. In your notebook, just on your own, in your own head, as far as the Shona Lexi novel, I'm now thinking, or I'm now wondering, ... After this whole discussion, after what you heard people say, what are you now thinking about the book?